Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dramatis Personae, the only Star Trek Read Aloud show in the Alpha Quadrant. We are very proud to introduce our very first episode from Star Trek Enterprise, Bounty. I'm going to introduce the cast here. I'm going to say their names, they're going to say hello, and who they're playing. So first up, we got David X Crowe.
Hey, I'm playing to Pop.
We got Leah Newton.
Hi, I will be playing KAGO-DARR and Security Officer.
We got JB Flat.
Hello, I will be providing narration.
We got Casey Lowry.
Hello, I will be playing Travis and GOROTH.
And Maksim Rex.
Hello, I'm playing PHLOX.
We got Becks Renfro.
Hi, I'm playing Trip Tucker.
we got Steffi.
Hello, I'll be playing HOSHI SATO.
We got Randall C. Brown.
I am playing Captain Archer.
We got Paul Bloomer.
Sorry, worst time to have mic problems. I'm playing the nasty pig daddy, SKALAAR.
And we got Angel Martí Castillo.
Hello, everybody. I'm playing Malcolm Reed, which means I'm going to be doing a British accent in front of a repertory full of actual Brits. So I'm bracing for that. But I know nobody will make fun of my accent while I'm playing the Klingon. Klingon jich, tach judge.
Wonderful.
I mean, take the mick out of my Vulcan accent, we'll be fine.
All right, cool. Well, here we are, Dramatis Personae, episode 5, Bounty.
The year is 2153. Enterprise NX-01 is orbiting a blue planet while one of its shuttle pods is docking. A small ship is in parallel orbit with Enterprise. Captain Jonathan Archer is recording his star log.
Captain Starlog, March 21st, 2153. After 3 days exploring an uninhabited planet, Commander Tucker and I have been called back to Enterprise to greet an unexpected visitor.
In the turbo lift, Archer and Chief Engineer Trip Tucker are in desert fatigues.
Maybe you were lightheaded from the altitude.
I didn't slip. That overhang gave way the moment I put my foot on it.
I walked on the same rocks you did.
Maybe you loosened them. You do weigh a few kilos more than I do.
Archer and Tucker exit onto the bridge where Armory Officer Malcolm Reed is monitoring the situation.
Report.
Dropped out of warp 30 minutes ago. The pilot sent a brief audio message. He insisted on speaking with you right away.
Any idea what he wants?
He wouldn't say, but I did manage to find his ship design in the Vulcan database. It's Tellarite.
Paul's mentioned them. Open the channel. This is Jonathan Archer of the Enterprise. What can I do for you?
The Tellarite, an alien with small eyes, tusk-like lower incisor teeth, and a snout-like nose, appears on the view screen.
You can start by telling me what you're doing here.
I didn't get your name.
Captain SKALAAR of the Tellarite Mining Consortium.
We're studying this planet. I have 3 science teams on the service. We're also here for a little shore leave.
Shore leave?
Vacation. It's been a while since we've had a chance to relax.
In that case, I recommend the Equatorial Range. The view from the North Summit is inspiring.
You've been here before.
Many times. I prefer to think of it as my own personal retreat. You mustn't leave until you've experienced the hydrothermal pools of Ra-Gam.
Where are they?
The polar island chain, 227 kilometers from the southern tip of the Rye Coast shoreline. Look for the pyroclastic debris field and then follow the lava tubes.
Sounds like we could use a guide.
I'd be happy to show you.
You sure we're not intruding?
Not at all. I'll meet you at your starboard docking port. I'll help plan your shore leave.
Archer and Tucker make their way to the airlock.
So Paul says they're not the most agreeable species. Apparently they enjoy a good argument. It's considered sport on their planet.
I've got an old girlfriend this guy might like to meet.
Tucker opens the airlock and SKALAAR shoots him. Archer struggles for the weapon and gets shot himself. SKALAAR closes the airlock, taking Archer with him aboard his ship. On the bridge, comms officer HOSHI SATO notices something is wrong.
I'm picking up weapons fire on E-deck, the starboard airlock.
Team, breach to Captain Archer.
Enterprise shudders.
Report, Travis.
The Tellarite ship's trying to undock with the seals locked.
Engage the emergency clamps.
SKALAAR's ship breaks away from Enterprise and shoots at the starboard nacelle.
He's going to warp.
Pursuit course.
He's disabled our starboard nacelle. We can't follow him, sir.
Get those teams up from the surface.
A shuttle pod returns from the surface.
Hold,
a little later,
hold. Sorry, 1 second. We missed the theme song, which we put together for this. So we're gonna cut to that now. Okay.
Insert act break.
Insert act break. Here we go. All right.
Broadcast quality is down.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, and we are back.
A shuttle pod returns from the surface of the planet. A little later on, Dr. PHLOX is in the decontamination anteroom with First Officer T'Pol, who is on the comm with Tucker.
We're having trouble isolating his signature. There must have been something to mask it.
How long until we have warp drive?
Less than an hour.
I'm on my way to the bridge.
Acknowledged.
I'm afraid you're not going anywhere for the moment. We brought a stowaway with us, a rather unusual microbe.
Is it contagious?
I'll have to run some more tests. To be safe, we should both go through decon.
Meanwhile, on SKALAAR's shuttle, Captain Archer wakes up behind yellow, glowing, curved bars of energy.
What do you want? I asked you a question.
Archer touches a bar and gets a shock.
I'd stay clear of those emitters if I were you. The very latest technology. I installed them last month.
I doubt this ship of yours will be a match for Enterprise.
I've taken appropriate countermeasures. We won't be seeing any more of your starship.
I want to know where you're taking me. My crew's not going to give up until they find me. If you take me back, I'll be willing to forget this ever happened.
SKALAAR points his weapon at him.
You can either be quiet or you can spend the rest of this trip unconscious. Which do you prefer?
Archer sits down quietly. Back in the Enterprise decontamination chamber, T'Pol and PHLOX are in their underwear.
This microbe is more resilient than I thought. It doesn't seem to be vulnerable to theta radiation.
Perhaps you can increase the dosage.
That wouldn't be advisable. We'd both suffer permanent cellular damage.
There must be something else you can try.
Decon E-gel may neutralize the microbe, but it will be several hours before we know if it's effective.
I can't stay here several hours.
You have little choice. This organism appears to be infectious, and humans would be far more vulnerable to it than you or I. Commander Tucker is quite capable. If he needs your help, he knows where to find you.
PHLOX draws a curtain between them before disrobing to apply the sparkly gel.
Fortunately, no one else on the surface was exposed to the microbe. I suspect you and I were contaminated when we climbed into the second ravine. Considering the quality of fauna down there, I'm not at all surprised. We were probably infected by those marsupials I found.
I told you to leave them alone.
Their saliva is a natural anticoagulant. I couldn't return to the ship without a sample. I could use your assistance.
T'Pol pulls the curtain back to apply the gel to PHLOX's prominent ridged spine.
I wasn't aware a curtain was installed.
Not everyone is comfortable with the idea of disrobing in front of others.
An odd attitude for a physician.
It's a characteristic of denobulan males. We're more inhibited than our women. It's led to a number of awkward moments. My Starfleet physical was an experience I never hope to repeat.
T'Pol is fascinated by PHLOX's spinal ridges and appears to be distracted.
If you wouldn't mind.
T'Pol pulls up her shirt, and PHLOX awkwardly applies gel without actually looking at her.
Hold, please. We're at very low bit rate. Let's just see if we can wait for it to improve.
Yeah, we're down to 410. It's coming up a little.
Let me see if I can fix that.
Holding for subspace messaging recalibration. Initiate tachyon pulse to boost signal.
Well, we're down to 0 now, so that's definitely worked. Well done, Engineer Angel.
Okay. We're going to stop the stream and restart. One moment. Keep
This
going.
is why they don't let Cubans run starships.
All right. I think we're back. All right. Can we just go back a little bit? David,
Okay.
can you confirm we're back?
We're back.
Okay, where we left off, T'Pol and Dr. PHLOX were in the decontamination chamber. T'Pol is applying decontamination gel to PHLOX's spinal ridges and appears to be distracted.
If you wouldn't mind.
T'Pol pulls up her shirt, and PHLOX awkwardly applies gel without actually looking at her.
Sensors are picking up a faint warp signature.
Can you get a fix on it?
Bearing 070 Mark 32. It's erratic, but it matches our Tellarite friend.
Set a course. Maximum warp.
Enterprise changes course and goes to work. Back on his ship, SKALAAR is on the comm with a Klingon officer.
You are speaking on a secure channel. You just...
I'm trying to reach Captain GOROTH. It's very important that I speak with him.
We're attempting to transfer you. Stand by.
This is GOROTH. What do you want?
I have the fugitive.
He's in your custody?
He's standing about 5 meters from me. You'll be pleased to know he's still alive. I'm bringing him to Kronos as we agreed.
No, I'm transmitting rendezvous coordinates. Be there in 2 days.
I trust you'll have the full payment.
You'll get what was promised.
A pleasure doing business with you, Captain. As always.
How much are they paying you? You mentioned the Klingon homeworld Kronos. I assume this has something to do with my escaping prison. You don't even know what I'm accused of.
You're right, and I don't care to.
Meanwhile, Enterprise comes out of warp.
The signature's holding steady. Looks like he's orbiting a G-type star.
Go to tactical alert.
But as they approach, they can see it's not a ship.
It appears to be a beacon of some kind. It's generating warp signature identical to the Tellarites.
A decoy. Anything on sensors?
Reed shakes his head.
We're gonna have to start all over.
I'm getting too much interference from that device. It's throwing off our scans.
Then get rid of it.
With pleasure, sir.
Reed phasers it into atoms. On SKALAAR's ship, it's mealtime, and SKALAAR is serving up something from a pan on a stove.
I have no idea what the Klingons are paying you, but whatever it is, Starfleet will double it.
I don't take bribes from criminals.
I'm not a criminal.
Klingon judiciary says that you are.
My crime was helping a full ship of refugees.
Oh, that was very noble of you. You'll have to think twice before doing that again.
It's pretty clear that I'm never going to get the chance. I was sentenced to life in prison on Rurapente. Ever heard of it?
I'm familiar with Rurapente.
The magistrate isn't going to be so lenient next time. I'll probably be executed.
That's not my concern.
You don't care that you're sending an innocent man to his death?
I've captured dozens of fugitives. Every one of them claimed to be an innocent man.
If the Klingons want him, they probably were. You don't have to do this.
GOROTH already knows you're aboard. If I don't deliver you, he'll offer a reward for both of us. I've learned never to cross a Klingon.
It must be difficult working for people like them.
I don't answer to those savages. I work for myself.
That's not how it looks from in here.
If you knew how much they were paying me, you would understand. This has nothing to do with you. I'm sure you're not a bad person, just an unlucky one.
Back in the Enterprise decontamination chamber, Dr. PHLOX is scanning T'Pol.
You're making it difficult to meditate.
You've developed a slight fever. I'm also reading elevated dopamine levels. The microbe may be affecting your limbic system.
I can't concentrate under these conditions.
I don't mean to be intrusive.
T'Pol stands and paces.
The captain's been abducted. He may even be dead. My place is on the bridge.
T'Pol exits via the locker room, but PHLOX gets to the main exit before her and locks it.
What's up, Commander? Where are you going?
Open it.
You'll spread the infection.
I'll go to my quarters. If I seal off the ventilation system, it should minimize the risk of exposing anyone.
Your quarters are on C deck. By the time you reach them, you'll contaminate half the ship.
Unlock this door. I gave you a direct order.
I'm sorry, but I can't obey it.
I can have you court-martialed.
I doubt that very much.
Open it. I apologize. I'm having trouble suppressing my emotions.
We'll know in a few hours whether the gel is working. Until then, perhaps a mild sedative might help.
Back on his ship, SKALAAR is speaking to another Tellarite, GAAVRIN.
The Klingons are paying 9,000 darsecs. That's more than enough to get Tezra back.
You're not being realistic.
I already have the human in custody. The reward is guaranteed.
You've made this promise before.
In 2 days, you'll see. I'm telling the truth.
Even if you get the money, which I doubt, it wouldn't change my decision.
Do you want to scrub plasma injectors for the rest of your life? I'm giving you a chance to...
GAAVRIN disappears from the screen as the signal cuts out. SKALAAR operates his computer terminal.
Who's Tezra?
Tezra's not a person. It's a cargo ship. Far more impressive than this antique.
You're going to use the reward to buy your ship back.
You'd be wise to keep quiet. The Klingons pay me the same, whether you're alive or dead. A vessel's approaching. I wouldn't get too optimistic. It's not your starship.
SKALAAR's ship comes out of warp as another larger ship approaches from aft. Another alien makes contact with SKALAAR. This one has its chin tucked in and a ridged skull with 2 plumes of fine magenta hair hanging down.
You have something I want.
Always one step behind me, eh, KAGO?
Drop out of warp and surrender the prisoner.
Why would I do that?
Don't force me to take action.
GOROTH told you where I was, didn't he?
You had 2 months to find...
Hey folks, sorry, we're at really low bit rate again. Let's just give it a second. Why is this happening? Y'all, I get like 300 megabytes on my internet, so I don't know.
Is anybody else using your bandwidth at the moment?
Nope. They are not. Let me just make sure that it's going through the right.
Back up to 901 now.
Okay, one sec.
Clearly, we have Klingon sabotage of our communications platforms.
Where is network?
It's the only logical explanation.
Okay.
Try reversing the polarity.
1 second. 1
That
second.
always works.
I think I know what the issue is. 1 second.
Just put the word quantum in front of everything, and that usually solves it.
Randall, are you okay in my dungeon there? Do you need a glass of water or something?
Yeah, I'm good. At least the light bars, they give me light to read from. So.
All right. I think we're okay to go again. Can we go back to SKALAAR's ship, page 16, please?
SKALAAR's ship comes out of warp as another larger ship approaches from aft. Another alien makes contact with SKALAAR. This one has its chin tucked in and a ridged skull with 2 plumes of fine magenta hair hanging down.
You have something I want.
Always one step behind me, eh, KAGO?
Drop out of warp and surrender the prisoner.
Why would I do that?
Don't force me to take action.
GOROTH told you where I was, didn't he?
You had 2 months to find the human. GOROTH contacted me because you obviously weren't going to succeed. You're incompetent.
If I was incompetent, Archer would be aboard your ship, wouldn't he?
The human. Now.
Or what? You'll destroy my shuttle? Can't collect on Archer if he's a cloud of vapor.
SKALAAR closes the communications channel.
You may want to hold on to something.
Both ships go to warp and exchange fire.
Let me out. I can help you.
You must think I'm a fool.
You can't maneuver the ship and make repairs at the same time. I'm a pilot. Let me take the helm.
If you try to escape,
SKALAAR lets him out.
This is the warp field regulator, the impulse throttle.
Navigation sensors.
There.
There's an L-class planet in the system taking us out of warp.
What?
We can't outrun him, but he may not be able to navigate as well as we can in the planet's atmosphere.
SKALAAR's shuttle descends into semi-opaque clouds in the L-class planet's atmosphere.
This ship wasn't designed for these maneuvers. We've lost the aft cannons.
What about the forward cannons?
Still online.
What are these?
Subspace beacons. They generate a false warp signature. I used one of them to evade your vessel.
Get ready to launch him.
What good will that do?
He's flying on sensors just like we are. He'll only have a 1 in 3 chance of targeting us.
Ready.
Now.
We see the probes launch. As KAGO-DARR's ship follows them, Archer maneuvers behind it and fires.
We knocked out his engine. He's making an emergency landing.
Don't celebrate yet. Our reactor's leaking. The warp drive's offline. I'm never going to make the rendezvous.
Oh, isn't that a shame?
The reactor also powers life support.
Well, then you'd better get to work.
It can only be accessed from the outer hull.
Then we should sit down here.
But cargo's on the surface.
We'll land 1,000 kilometers away.
Back in the Enterprise decontamination chamber, PHLOX is asleep on a bench, but is woken by T'Pol's hand on his neck.
What are you doing?
You said we'd need another treatment.
Not for 3 hours.
Is there any harm in starting now?
I think I can apply it myself, thank you. Perhaps you need another sedative.
Rest is not what I need.
Sub-Commander, this behavior is hardly appropriate.
My name is T'Pol. You don't find me attractive?
Of course I do, but that is not the issue.
I am familiar with denobulan sexuality. I know that your marriages aren't exclusive.
You and I are colleagues. It's against regulations.
Starfleet regulations. There is no reason to be restrained by human morality.
It's obvious you're not well. Please.
You have no idea what you're denying yourself.
Your endorphin and hormonal levels are dangerously high.
You don't understand. I'm not ill.
Those are hardly normal readings.
They are normal for a Vulcan in my condition.
You know what's wrong with you.
It's not something we discuss with others.
I believe it's time for you to amend that policy. You have my assurance it will remain between us.
We call it the Ponfar, the cycle of mating.
Have you gone through this before?
It's not time.
It's possible the infection acted as a catalyst.
What caused it doesn't matter. If I don't mate with someone, Vulcan or otherwise, I'll die.
Meanwhile, on the barren and pockmarked surface of the L-class planet, Archer and SKALAAR are working on SKALAAR's ship.
That ship you mentioned, the Tezra, sounds pretty important to you.
More than you know. If KAGO collects the reward, he'll probably waste it on Orion's slave girls. Not me. I'm going to do something useful with it.
I don't understand why you want a cargo ship. It doesn't seem practical in your line of work.
You think I've been chasing fugitives my entire life? No. Once I get the money, I'll have enough to pay off the impound fees. I'll be a freighter captain again.
My helmsman used to run freight. The two of you would probably have a lot to talk about.
The Tezra isn't like any other cargo ship. She was the first of her class, the fastest ever built. She could haul 1 million metric tons at warp 4.5. Even your starship isn't capable of that. I retrofitted her engines myself.
You never told me why it was impounded.
My brother and I were hauling a shipment of fire salt. I thought we could trim 2 or 3 days off by cutting across the most insignificant corner of Klingon space. I learned very quickly there's no such thing as an insignificant corner of Klingon space. We were lucky to escape with our lives, though we did pay a price.
Archer tries to look casual as wisps of smoke rise from the circuitry behind him.
They took your ship?
And its cargo too. My brother, never forgive me. I've been trying to find a way to get the Tezra back ever since. What are you doing?
SKALAAR throws Archer to the ground and pulls a weapon.
Did you really think I wanted this engine fixed? You're taking me to be executed.
Don't worry. We'll meet GOROTH on time.
Back in the decontamination chamber on Enterprise, T'Pol wakes up as PHLOX is working with test tubes and a pad.
Feeling any better?
I'm hungry.
Our meals will be here soon.
I wasn't referring to food.
I'm working as quickly as I can. The serum should help alleviate most of your symptoms.
There's a far simpler treatment.
I'd prefer to explore a more conventional approach.
You have the cure. It's unethical for you to withhold it, Doctor.
This mating cycle of yours was artificially induced. We can't be certain that a physical encounter would help.
I'm willing to try.
Sub-Commander.
Don't be frightened. I won't hurt you.
Paul rubs up against him and knocks over several test tubes.
You're disturbing my serum. You obviously need to be sedated again.
No more hyposprays.
One of us should probably answer that. It could be news about the captain. This is PHLOX.
Anyone hungry in there? Brought you some supper.
Just in the nick of time, Commander. It would be best if you remained here.
How are you two holding up?
Well enough. Have you been able to locate Captain Archer?
We're tracking another warp signature. Hopefully this one is the real thing. Are those the ones you wanted?
PHLOX checks the meals and a medical supply case.
Yes, thank you.
Is that food?
T'Pol snatches a meal.
Yeah, I had Chef make you some.
T'Pol devours it greedily with her hands.
Is she all right?
She developed a slight fever. Nothing to be concerned about.
PHLOX pushes T'Pol back into the chamber and shuts the door on her.
Read?
Bridge to Commander Tucker. Yeah.
Go ahead.
We're approaching the coordinates.
On my way. Call if you need anything.
Sure.
Enterprise arrives at a gray-looking planet.
What have you got?
2 matching warp signatures, both in the upper atmosphere. More subspace beacons. There's a ship on the surface. It seems to have suffered engine damage, but it's not Tellarite.
Biosigns?
1.
Open a channel.
Yes?
Sorry to bother you, but we're looking for a Tellarite shuttle. Have you seen one?
How much did the Klingons offer you?
Klingons? Look, there must be some sort of misunderstanding here. We're looking for our captain.
Your captain. He's got a price on his head. He's probably halfway to Klingon space by now.
The transmission ends.
Travis, how close are we to Klingon space?
Less than 6 light years.
If that Tellarite's looking to collect some kind of reward, we'd better find him before he gets there. Set a course. Take us back to warp.
Aye, sir.
SKALAAR's ship arrives at a space station which has multiple ships docked at it. He presses a door, and his brother GAAVRIN steps aboard.
What are you doing here?
I need your help.
You shouldn't have brought him.
You think I would have come here if I had a choice? I need an antimatter injector.
And I suppose you have no way of paying for it.
Do you know who this is? He's the only prisoner who's escaped from Rurapente. The Klingons are offering a fortune to have him back. Tell him! Tell him!
But Archer remains quiet.
If I give you the injector, you have to promise never to come back here.
Of course I'm coming back. You're going to be my first officer.
That was years ago. I work here now.
Scrubbing plasma injectors? Is that what you want your children to see?
It's better than hunting criminals.
You think I enjoy spending my time with vermin like him?
I have work to do.
Please, don't turn your back on me. We can reclaim Tezra.
You won't want to see that ship after... You won't want that ship after you see it.
Why not?
The Klingons cannibalized her. Every power relay, every conduit.
The engines?
They're gone. I'll give you the injector, but after that, I want you to leave.
GAAVRIN leaves.
What do you plan to do now?
Get that injector and install it.
And then? I suppose you'll turn me over to the Klingons. I'll be disemboweled with one of those nasty-looking swords of theirs. You'll collect your 9,000 darsecs, but it won't get you the Tezra back.
What are you trying to say?
The Klingons took your freighter, your livelihood, damaged your relationship with your brother. And what do you get in exchange? 9,000 darsecs. Doesn't seem like a very fair trade to me.
What choice do I have? I told you, if I let you go, they'll kill me.
Maybe not. Have you ever been aboard Goroth's ship?
Twice. Why?
Back in the decontamination chamber, T'Pol is muttering in Vulcan.
Tiarmin.
I beg your pardon?
Let me out.
You know I can't do that.
The heat, it's unbearable.
If I lower the temperature, the serum will start to congeal.
I don't want your serum. Open the door.
I assure you, you're going to feel much better in just a few minutes.
Open it.
This will only take a moment. Your biochemical imbalance is growing worse. If we don't treat it now, the damage to your limbic system could be irreversible. You said it yourself to Paul, it could kill you.
Stay away from me.
One injection, that's all I ask. Very well.
PHLOX opens the door.
You're free to go. 42864. That's the lock-in code. Denobulan medical ethics prevent me from treating patients against their will. 42864.
PHLOX tries to inject T'Pol from behind as she stands at the keypad, but she knocks him out instead.
Ah!
The code doesn't work, so she rips the panel from the wall, leaving a small fire, and forces the door open by hand and dashes into the corridor. PHLOX gets up.
PHLOX to the bridge.
Tucker here.
You may want to evacuate D-Deck.
A little while later in the Enterprise corridor, Reed and his security team are in spacesuits, scanners out.
She said, excuse me, something wrong with the atmosphere in here. She's still in this section. The doctor says she's irrational, so use caution.
Yes, sir.
They split up to search.
Malcolm,
We've been
I
very
need
worried.
your assistance.
We've been very worried about you, Sub-Commander. Let's get you back to the doctor.
I can't return to the doctor. He's refusing to treat me. How long has it been?
I beg your pardon?
DePaul presses against Malcolm's spacesuit as if trying to climb in.
Since you've mated, I've seen the way you look at me on the bridge.
Why don't we discuss this in decon?
My quarters would be more comfortable.
She reaches for the helmet lock, and he pushes her away.
Dr. PHLOX was very insistent.
Reed puts his hand on his phase pistol. T'Pol pushes him against the bulkhead, and he falls. She runs off, but gets trapped at an intersection by the three men.
Follow me, Sub-Commander.
Ovel!
T'Pol rushes at him and gets stunned by phaser fire. Meanwhile, SKALAAR's ship docks with a Klingon vessel.
Welcome.
SKALAAR gets pushed aside, and a Klingon scans Archer to check his identity. He nods at Captain GOROTH.
The Empire never forgets its enemies. Taka!
What about my payment?
GOROTH throws a box at him.
6,000 darsecs.
We agreed to 9.
Did we?
That's blood money, SKALAAR. I hope you enjoy it.
The Klingons take Archer away and go to warp. Back on the Enterprise bridge.
We're being hailed, Commander. It's the Tellarite ship.
Tucker? Do we have Tucker?
She's muted.
Sorry. What? Put him through.
Archer picks the lock of his handcuffs, then uses a device concealed in them to open the door. Archer uses the cuffs to bludgeon a guard who comes running at the alarm. He takes the Klingon's disruptor pistol and runs. Meanwhile, back on the Enterprise bridge.
I've got them. Bearing 226 Mach 71.
Set a course. Go to tactical alert.
On the Klingon ship, Archer takes out 2 guards and tries to get into an escape pod, but fails. He has a gunfight with more Klingons.
Where do you think you'll go, human? There isn't a planet within 50 light years.
Archer blasts his way into an escape pod and launches it.
He won't get far. Drop out of warp.
Hood, should I charge weapons?
No, I want him alive.
Back on the bridge of the Enterprise.
I see him. 800,000 kilometers. What about the Klingons?
They're closing in on him.
The Klingons lock a tractor beam onto the escape pod, but Enterprise's weapons fire disrupts it.
They're charging weapons.
Enterprise shakes.
Return fire. Deploy the grappler.
They're not making it easy.
Malcolm?
I'm doing the best I can, sir. Their weapons ports are heavily shielded.
Got it!
Bring him in!
The final phase cannon salvo does damage.
Their weapons are down.
The pod?
Safe and sound. Launch bay 2.
Let's get the hell out of here.
In the decontamination chamber, T'Pol is asleep on the floor. PHLOX enters, fully clothed, and wakes T'Pol with a hypospray.
You'll be pleased to know the microbe's been eliminated from your system. Your premature mating cycle has ended.
Did I do anything inappropriate?
I've had patients treat me far worse.
Did we...
Oh, denobulan males aren't comfortable discussing such topics.
I'd appreciate it if you didn't mention this to anyone.
I'd never violate a patient's privacy.
PHLOX helps T'Pol to her feet. Meanwhile, Archer is back aboard and on the bridge of the Enterprise.
Rough ride?
What's the status of the Klingon?
We damaged their port nacelle. They're limping back to Kronos.
Where's T'Pol?
She's in decon with Dr. PHLOX.
So, what happened?
It's a long story.
You're being hailed, Captain.
I see you made it back safely.
Do you think the Klingons know you gave me that lockpick?
I don't see why they would.
What are you going to do with your reward?
I'm not sure. If you know of an old freighter for sale.
I'll keep my eyes open.
Be careful, Captain. It's likely the Klingons will double their bounty.
I hope you won't be the one to collect it.
No promises.
All right, and we're gonna play our little credits, but we'll be right back, folks. Okay, and we are back. Great job, everybody. Wait.
Thank you.
So I forgot to mention at the top of this that we as a collective decided that with June being Pride Month, we were going to we were committed to doing only horny Trek episodes through June. So this is our first horny Trek episode. We hope you enjoyed it. But as usual, I'd like to just go ahead and open the open this up to the cast to sort of respond to this. Does anyone have anything they want to start with, just in response to this?
My t-shirt is so wet. It's
Take it off. Take it off.
Look, we've got close to 0 viewers already. Let's not push that down.
Great.
I have to say, I love that Max went full method, and with the top off, and that was great.
Yeah, it was actually good because we had the chance to rehearse yesterday. Because, frankly, very, very difficult to do this over Zoom. Intimacy like that really requires physical space.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it was a challenge. So it was nice to have a run through. But actually, I think it led to us both doing a couple of things that were perhaps a bit more visceral, a bit more physical, that allowed us to play those a bit better. That's why there is a big bottle of water here that has mostly over me during this episode.
David, talk me through your process becoming extremely horny.
Well, as you know, Carl, it would be deeply unprofessional if one of the actors had porn playing in the background whilst trying to pretend to be horny. So we'll say that didn't happen.
Would.
That's method acting.
I'm not even going to ask you what Pornhub you had going on, although I am very interested.
Yeah, we can have that conversation offline. Were that to have happened?
If you could just
right.
drop your search terms in the chat of this room.
If one of them isn't Pig Daddy, I'll be disappointed.
Yeah, can we talk about how the fact that the Tellarites are often depicted as like villainous sort of is really offensive to people who enjoy bears as a body type.
The Tellarites are one of the founding species of the Federation, aren't they? So
yeah,
like,
but I mean,
the
like,
good guys.
They are, but they're often depicted as very hostile. Like in a
Yeah.
mock time, they're the ones that like accuse Sarek of I forgot what they accuse.
Journey
Sarek of,
to
but-
Babel, but yeah.
it's what did I? Oh, I said a mock time. Yeah, Journey to Babel. They get into an argument with Sarek, so they become like one of the
Suspects.
suspects. Yes.
Yeah, and Archer says at the beginning, yeah, they're not the most agreeable species.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the beta canon, so like in the novels and stuff, they've really developed this concept of the ritualistic insult and response.
Nice.
And certainly Enterprise drew on that for this episode because, as you know, there's a lot of interaction between the unofficial and the official canons. And so the Tellarites are really this species who have ritualized insulting people. And if you don't start with an appropriate insulting comment, then you're not taken seriously.
Oh, could you give me an example?
Fuck you, buddy.
So that would be seen as offensive because it's just not a good read.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, so effectively, I guess it's a bit like RuPaul's Drag Race. So you need to and you need to open with commenting on how you're not sure whether that's a wormhole or his arsehole.
Hashtag representation. That's all I have to say about that. I want to know from our subjects of the Queen, how are our British dialects this week?
Yeah, how many different British accents did I end up using?
I thought you were pretty consistent. Sorry, David. I thought Angel was pretty consistent there, and I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was good effort.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I thought pretty spot on, and not just British accent. You were actually channeling Reed's mannerisms quite well. The only bit where it did sort of dip out accent-wise was actually right in the beginning, where it wasn't even British. It did actually go slightly Australian for a bit.
I think there was one point where like I'm pretty sure I accidentally slid into kind of like a New Zealand thing because I've been watching a lot of The Expanse, and every time Gunny talks, I always love imitating her accent, so maybe that sort of jumped out.
But yeah, on the whole, I mean, much better than my range of American accents, I'm sure. So
oh wait,
yeah,
hold on.
applaud you. You know,
I want to hear your American accent.
Absolutely.
my so basically, I start off trying to do like whatever regional accent is, but it always just slides towards Texas.
Great.
And then it slides towards so you know Brent Spiner, that the role that sort of made him famous, the Night
on
Court
Night
role.
Court.
Yeah. that's like the one American accent that I can do consistently is kind of like that, really. You know, I can't now I say it, I can't do it.
Wait. Hold on. I'm gonna give you a line reading. I'm gonna give you a line reading. I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this if you don't want. I just thought it would be fun. Oh my god. Oh, so fun. Do we have any other thoughts?
So it's been a long time since I've seen this episode.
It's been a long time.
Unintentional, but I'll take it. Is this the only time we see a female Vulcan go through Ponfar in Star Trek? Because like when all the guys go through Ponfar, they're like, I will kill someone to fuck someone else. And T'Pol's Ponfar is like, just give it to me. Like she is so thirsty in like the most exciting and strange way possible. And I wonder if in other media this is a consistent Vulcan gender / sex thing, or if that's just the script she got and so that's how she did it.
Well, multiple times I think in previous Ponfar episodes it stated that only male Vulcans go through Ponfar at all. And so a lot of people are like, okay, T'Pol is trans.
Oh,
love it.
Headcanon accepted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
I also just want to comment that I found that I got to admit, like, Enterprise is the one series I've never really watched until very, very recently. So I didn't know that little fact about denobulin marriages being unexclusive. And I like the fact that that's put in there to show that, like, PHLOX is not refusing his advances because of some other commitment to somebody else, but because of a commitment to professionalism. Because a lot of other times you see in those kinds of temptation type scenes, it's like, no, I love someone else or whatever.
Right.
So, but it's like, but it's nice to see that. And also, it's just good as somebody in an open marriage. It's nice to see that healthy open marriage representation in media.
Well,
there's a whole episode about it, I think. Where
right.
Yeah.
one of his wives shows up and like tries to seduce Tucker.
Oh, that's funny.
And he's like, what, you're married?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And he like goes to PHLOX, he's like, I have to tell you something.
And he's like,
your wife
PHLOX
is really
is like,
coming
"You're
on
into
to
her,
me,
right?
and PHLOX
Do
is
it."
like, great.
Oh wow, so now I just have something I can tell people to watch every time they match with me on Tinder and go, so how does an open marriage work?
Yeah. If I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, like everyone gets like it's typical that everyone's got like 3 spouses. And so PHLOX has 3 wives, and his wife potentially has 2 other husbands, and yeah.
But I'm interested in like how like the extremely open polyamory like works together with his extreme prudishness, like doesn't want to be naked in the decontamination chamber. Like I'm just curious about that.
Max and I discussed this yesterday because we thought this was a really weird it felt really out of character given what we already know about PHLOX, because obviously we're in the later episodes. So the fact that PHLOX suddenly becomes prudish seemed really weird to me, particularly when you see a couple of a few episodes later when his missus is aboard and he's talking about pimping out one of his colleagues to her.
Yeah, Max, talk to me about that. How did you wrap your...
I think, I think I had to lean a lot on the professionalism, and I was talking to David about this yesterday. Watching the episode, PHLOX is actually a really interesting character, and the actor made the choice to just completely like internalize all of the anxiety and awkwardness that he was feeling, that the character was feeling. So I had to try to kind of like open that up a little bit, but I feel like it's the majority of it really was the professionalism and knowing that he didn't want to take advantage of T'Pol in a situation that he knew she was not in control of. But I mean, based on later episodes and then what they also say during this episode, I guess maybe denobulin males are just maybe it's like the opposite of what we have in a lot of our Earth societies, where instead of men being the aggressors, the female is the aggressor. So.
I mean, from my experience in like the poly community, like plenty of poly people are kind of awkward nerds outside of like the spaces that are designated for, that kind of scene. So
that is true.
And there's a lot of talk about setting boundaries and like familiarity and in-group, out-group. So it's like, I'm sure after they've been to a few munches together, T'Pol and PHLOX would be much more comfortable with each other.
Right. Right. I did not have another question prepared, but does anyone have any other thoughts to share about this episode or Pride or the state of the world or what's coming up?
Oh God.
Can I just say I thought Paul's SKALAAR was excellent, but actually I felt really sorry for him. He was really caught between a rock and a hard place. Yeah, he was an awful person at the start of the episode, but he'd actually redeemed himself by the end of the episode. And it's nice to see a redemption arc happen so quickly, because normally in series like this, that happens over like 20 episodes.
Well, we've seen a few of those, right? Like last time we see Worf kind of reform over the episode regarding gender roles, right?
You see, I didn't think that he changed his attitude on gender roles. I think he was still sexist as fuck, but also wanted to support Riker.
Right.
I think he did evolve some, because that scene where he's like, "Oh, that's a woman's game," it ends with Data being like, "Well, why wouldn't like a human and a Janai like be compatible or whatever?" So the sense I got is like they asked why, and then he was like, "Oh, yeah, why?" And like worked through that a bit.
Right. Right.
The rest of the world sucks.
I'd just like to say I think our rendition of Faith of the Heart turned out really well.
Oh yeah,
I agree. It was beautiful.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for all your work on that. Next time we do Enterprise, we'll fill it out and make it a whole orchestral situation.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I have to say, just in response to, was it Angel who said you hadn't seen Enterprise until recently?
Yeah.
I remember like very clearly, like, you know, I grew up like just like drowning in Trek. Like my dad recorded every single episode of every show as it came on TV. Like that's how I learned how to program our VCR, was like looking through the TV guide, setting it to, you know, and we had a whole bookshelf full of VHS tapes and a whole catalog of like every show, every episode name, blah, 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 like a little description. He was obsessed. I made the models and everything. And I have to tell you, like, I think, I don't even remember, was it 99 when Enterprise came out? Like, I remember I watched one episode.
2001.
2001. I remember I watched the teaser and got to the theme song and was like, nope.
Yeah.
Done. Not watching this show. And
so can I tell you specifically what the really nerdy reason that like really pissed me off about the first 3 episodes of Enterprise?
Did it have anything to do with the fact that the NX-01 was not in the TNG technical manual?
No. This isn't even a Trek nerd thing, which means like a special extra level of nerd. I believe it's in the 2nd or 3rd episode.
Is it an oh boy by any chance?
A what? No. So the whole reason that Hoshi is supposed to be there is because they haven't perfected the universal translator. That she's like both a linguist and a polyglot, and you know. But there's an episode, like it's either the 2nd or 3rd episode. They go aboard a ship, and there's an audio distress call playing. And it's established that this is a language that she has not translated yet, but she listens to the audio recording and then goes, "Captain, I think their grammar is bimodal." And I'm like, you cannot deduce the grammar just from listening to the sounds of a language. Linguistics 101 talks about the indeterminacy of translation being why you cannot do that. Like usually Star Trek, even when it makes up science, tries to base it on like, you know, the very principles of existing science and doesn't try to break those principles. So that's where I was just like, it's the same thing. Like the reason why I just could not actually get myself to see Star Trek Into Darkness when I saw an advanced like synopsis that talked about like Spock freezing a volcano with a cold fusion bomb, because that's not what cold fusion is.
Right.
And I cannot support Trek that like gets science wrong in very obvious and stupid ways.
Yeah.
Well, if you think too hard about how the universal translator supposedly works, you'll make yourself absolutely crazy. I mean, it's literally magic. Like,
there's also
supposedly that also like not only comes up with grammar from the sounds, but actual vocabulary.
Well, it's supposed to. Isn't it supposed to translate the actual? Isn't it supposed to like be able to like receive the actual brain waves of people talking?
That's the only way it could pop. It would have to be a mind reading device, which why don't they use that for other shit? You know.
And then I think Hoshi has to be telepathic too, because there's also one episode where she like goes to a new planet where I think it's Ryza. Yeah, they go to Ryza for the first time, and nobody knows the Ryzian language, and they're there for like a day, and Hoshi is fluent within hours.
Well, you know what? That should.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, Steph. What were you gonna say?
It's okay. Yeah, it's something I was sort of thinking about. In playing Hoshi this time is like, I mean, she was kind of like the sort of the same kind of thing going on as went on with the Her in the original series, where it's like, oh, it's great and progressive, you know, having a woman of color with a scientific role on the ship, and then they reduced the character to her role, and they brought in this somewhat interesting thing of her being this exolinguist, which is a really idea with so much potential, but then they kind of reduced it to a superpower. Like they never showed the process really. It was just like, oh, they're going to this planet, and okay, so Hoshi just learns their language in 5 minutes, kind of thing, you know.
Which also, if they had just made her a telepath, that would have been kind of cool, because I know I bring up Babylon 5 every goddamn time we do this, but like one of the cool things that Babylon 5 does is exploring the concept of human telepaths that for some reason Star Trek really only does in a very cursory way. I've been binge watching TOS, and there was the one episode, oh god, I forgot the name of the episode, but it's the one with the actor who goes on to... Say that again?
Is there in truth no beauty?
Yes, it's the one with Diane Warren, who then goes on to play Catherine Pulaski in The Next Generation. But it's like they talk about her being a human telepath, and it's like, well, fuck, why do they not have more human telepaths later on in Star Trek? Because that is like an interesting... That does adds both a plot convenience where necessary and also an interesting dimension where wanted.
Well, and the other thing I was going to say is like if the universal translator truly can do all the things that it's purported to do, then why doesn't it work in Darmok?
Right.
Yeah, that's
because we use metaphor and language all the time. Like,
it's like you can metaphors cannot be translated unless you also know the literal base upon which those translators are.
And yet it seems to work with every other language.
I mean, I guess I don't want to turn this into a complete discussion of Darmok, but I will say, I mean, the Temerian metaphors do rely on a lot of proper nouns. So I guess it's like, you can't translate the proper nouns, and you can and like, maybe the translator is able to translate things like and, and at and
when
things.
The wall fell.
Yeah. So,
the other thing is how does it not switch how does Picard go in and out of French and Worf goes in and out of Klingon, and it knows when not to switch it?
That to me is more of the
also
maybe they like
Quark can rhyme in English when he's supposedly speaking Ferengi through his rhymes still rhyme in English. So I think a lot about it drives me absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
And it magically makes their mouths sync with the translation.
Right.
And for some reason, it makes all Ferengi pronounce human as human.
Right. Yes, that's it.
So my problem with the first season of Enterprise was at the end of the cold open, I expected Archer to turn to the camera and go, "Oh boy," every time for the whole season, because I was so used to him being in Quantum Leap that he wasn't Archer, and it was only when I got over that I really enjoyed Enterprise.
I like that they brought in Dean Stockwell for that couple episodes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you all, but I recently had a dream. I've been like listening to binaural beats while I sleep
yeah.
to sort of like enhance my dreams. And I had a dream that I was in a White House press conference, like in the audience for some reason, and like was doing some sort of like politics on that level. But throughout the whole thing, Scott Bakula kept trying to get my cell phone number.
Nice.
I just want to know. I want to know what my chances are. You know, I want to know what my chances are because I would 100% marry Scott Bakula in a second.
I can't hear Scott Bakula's name without thinking about how the proper term for the penis bone that many mammals have is a baculum, and thus the proper plural would be bacula. So then make your own joke there about your dream.
Well, let's see what the etymology is of Bakula as a last name. I'm gonna just Google this really fast.
I'll tell you something for nothing. It got to poll through that entire episode.
God. Oh, it's Polish, and it's derivative of the personal name Bak. And in Polish, it's a nickname for habitual liar, from bakulik to lie in one's throat. The Polish idiom translates literally as to lie in one's eyes.
And in one's penis bones.
They're like the President of the United States, if one was so inclined.
Right. Well, listen, you know, we got COVID-19 up in here. We got cops attacking people. We got white ladies calling the cops on black folks. It's a really dark time in world history, and I want to say that, you know, given that we're now in Pride, you know, we as a team are thinking a lot about what it means to do this show in the midst of all this stuff happening, and I just want to say on a personal note, and this is not anything I prepared, so I'm just talking off the top of my head, but like, I want you all to stay safe. I want you all to stay in the fight. I want you all to continue to, you know, dig deep into the legacy of Star Trek as an extremely forward-thinking communist utopia. And so that is to say, like, you know, I think that there, for me anyway, and Steffi, you can chime in if you want. For me, it's important that even as we do all this other stuff that we're doing, that we, and I know that not everyone on this team is queer, but I think it's important for us to sort of continue to remember the roots of our movement, and also at the same time to embrace our queer joy, right? So for all of you here and for everyone watching, I hope that you're taking time for yourself, and I hope that you're not overextending, as I have been. I've been extremely overextended the last week, and you know, we're you know, lean on your communities, and if you need a community, certainly get in touch with us. We'll make sure that you've got some support.
Can I add something there?
Yeah, please.
So yeah, along those lines, you know, as an organizer myself in Los Angeles, you know, I hear a lot of people saying things like, "What can I do right now?"
Mhm.
And yes, like actually, like, you know, getting in the streets and participating in direct actions is absolutely good and absolutely necessary. But it's like, it's also like valid for people to, you know, fear for their safety, especially like between police violence and COVID. But also that there's also a lot of important work in organizing that's not the sexy, glamorous shit that happens, you know, in front of cameras. So if you know, chances are people need like people to help. Some organizations might need people just to help with like logistical stuff, with like, you know, taking notes at meetings, or like helping to coordinate email chains or signal threads, like a lot of stuff that's you know, just it's not the thing that a lot of people rush to do. And oftentimes, you know, in experience, it's sometimes, you know, stuff that often gets feminized because it's like secretarial labor. So don't be afraid to contribute to movements and contribute to organizations and contribute to actions in those behind the scenes manners, because like, if there is a stronger network of that kind of support, it makes, you know, the people doing the stuff who on the street, the people who show up on the street, much more able to do their stuff safely, you know, or recover if shit does go down. If there's somebody who's like taking care of like keeping track of like National Lawyers Guild numbers or jail support stuff, like somebody has to do that secretarial stuff to make sure that the stuff on the street goes even smoother. So if you are somebody asking yourself, what can I do? And you like don't want to risk arrest, don't want to, you know, risk contamination, don't let that think that you are invalid or that you can't help. Like find the way to get plugged in.
Yeah, and not for nothing, like in New York, a number of you know, I have to say, like, I'm not, the work I've been doing has been mostly on my own, but I know that there are a number of groups that under other circumstances, you know, you can get involved in direct action, and not only can you say like, I don't want to be among the people who have a risk of being arrested,
right,
but also they're in terms of jail support, like one of the things that's really important is like, you know, especially in New York, now that we've suspended writs of habeas corpus and the police can keep people for as long as they want without any charges, you know, having people like attached to activists that are arrested, like these organizations will connect you so that like you go to the jail when they're planning, when they're slated to be arrested, and you have like a banana and water for that person and like help them call people. So, you know, there are other ways to even provide like emotional labor around this stuff that involves like directly working with protesters that makes such a huge difference. You know, being in jail under these circumstances is an incredibly distressing event, and just even know, like for them, knowing that someone is there and someone will help them. You know, oftentimes people are released without their cell phones, you know what I mean? So they don't have any opportunity to call the people who care about them. So yeah, tons of ways to get involved. Jail support and bail funds are incredibly important, you know, and it's trite, but you know, every dollar does matter. So if you're able to donate to any of the bail funds in your area, or you know, even if you're not in New York, I mean, New York has such a great need right now because the protests are so widespread. That's another way to get involved. And but before we head off, David just brought this up in chat, and I thought I would just highlight it. We made a decision when putting together the credits for this to call back to what is the name of the episode in DS9, David?
Far Beyond the Stars.
We decided to make a reference to Far Beyond the Stars, and David, if you're willing, I'd love for you to talk about Benny Russell and his legacy, and why we think it's important to center that in terms of you know, tying back our work to the broader work of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, so in the Deep Space Nine episode, Far Beyond the Stars, Cisco is sent back in a vision to, I think it's 1960s America, and he's working as a science fiction writer on a comic book, and he is consistently excluded and people take credit for his work, and eventually he entirely legitimately loses it and has a go at people. And the line that we've got there is one that I think any of us who who've been involved in queer activism or anything else like that are going to be familiar with, because it's that moment of saying, I just don't want to be calm. I'm tired of being calm, he says. Calm never got me a damn thing. And that is a frustration that many, many people can echo with. But seeing it on the screen, spoken by a black character who is actually from 400 years later than that, and who is sort of psychologically incapable of going, why do we treat people like this? I think is exceptionally powerful. The other one we could have chosen, of course, was from the Bell Riots.
Yeah.
So we could have gone with, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But in this case, I think just acknowledging black characters who are powerful and are able to turn around and say, actually, you know what, calm isn't the right response here. And all of us need to rise up with that. We need to support our black brothers and sisters. We need to support our queer brothers and sisters. We need to support trans brothers and sisters, women, frankly, all of these people out there who don't have the opportunities and privilege that white, cis, het, etc. People have, need to be supported. And being calm isn't a response. Being calm is just internalization of that. I had a conversation with my therapist last week where we talked about how I feel angry all the time. And we reflected on that for 30 seconds and said, hey, you know what? If you're going to be angry, this is a really good time to be angry. So I am fed up of being calm, and Benny said it better than I could. So we featured him this week.
I also wanted to say, I'm pulling it up, so I'm padding a little time before I say it, but I know that a couple of the actors who played Klingons in, movies, etc., just yesterday, I want to say, appeared on the Gays in Space podcast, and Michael Dorn tweeted about it with a Black Lives Matter hashtag. And I've not had an opportunity to listen to the episode, but have only heard wonderful things about it. So if you want to continue the conversation about, Black actors involved in Star Trek and the work they continue to do to address injustice with the tools they have.
I'll put a link to that in the group on this episode as well.
What's that?
We'll put a link to that Gays in Space episode on our episode chat. So
Awesome. Well, does anyone have any other words in closing? Actually, before we do that, Steffi, I want to apologize for trying to make you say the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's fine. I mean, I just feel sorry for all of you who actually are American who were, goaded into saying it every day at school, because American nationalism is
you say that, but I didn't go to school in America. I went to school in Britain, and we had to say a Pledge of Allegiance to the Christian flag. And then we pledged allegiance to the Bible. So, this is something that is, the face is fine, don't worry. This is a mode that I find vaguely amusing anyway. So,
Cool. Any other?
I grew up in Texas. Oh, sorry.
No. Oh, yeah.
I grew up in Texas, and we had to say we had to pledge allegiance to both the American and the Texan flag every morning.
Becks.
That's my Christian flag.
I went to weird Waldorf school, so I never had to pledge allegiance to anything.
Becks. I went to high school in Texas, and I remember my friend Kate, who is a big time attorney for the Army now. We would do the pledges of allegiance in German class, and Kate and I would just refuse to say the pledge to the Texas flag. And every time we just sat down for it, our German teacher would threaten to send us to the principal's office, and we were like, try it. And he never did. Oh my God. Any other closing thoughts to sort of wrap up this week's episode?
I've got one. Carl, you said that this is a really dark time, and I think that you're absolutely right. It's a really uncertain time. There's a lot a lot happening. Moments in like this in history tend to be followed by times of great change. So just on an optimistic note here, it's that while things seem pretty terrible at the moment, and while we're watching horrible images on the news, and I'm seeing things that are happening which I'm just totally appalled by, and watching my profession get dragged into the dirt, I know that better things will come of this, and I really honestly believe that we're at a turning point in history when it comes to how we deal with racism and how we confront it in our society. So I hope that we're on the right path here, and that this will lead to a revolution of sorts in terms of social justice and race.
I would just like to piggyback onto that, because I live in Ada, Oklahoma, which is a pretty small town in the middle of nowhere in a rural area. And we had a Black Lives Matter march last Friday, and 2,000 people showed up in a town of like 17,000. That's a large percentage of this population. And I was really surprised. And it felt to me like an indication that people who maybe weren't really paying attention before are finally starting to pay attention. I feel like we are at a turning point, and that something will change this time.
Yeah. And I mean, also just to piggyback on Paul. Paul and I hope this is okay that I share this, Paul. Paul and I had a long conversation about policing in Northern Ireland, where Paul lives and works as a police officer. And you know, it's also important to remember, I think, that certainly not all the issues we're dealing with are strict to the United States, but a lot of them are really endemic to our specific history. But it's also important to remember that there are other places in the world where reconciliations have happened, where a radical re-envisioning of the police's role has happened. And as we think about things like, what is it called? What was it, Angel? The
Eight Can't Wait.
Eight Can't Wait. As we start to think about things like Eight Can't Wait, and Minneapolis's move now to completely defund the police. I think it's just important to remember we can continue to be imaginative, and we can continue to be active, and we can continue to, it's not in my skill set to talk to people who are very pro-police about why the current model in the United States around public safety is terrible. But if that's in your skill set, then I encourage you also to start having those conversations. And I mean, maybe Angel, you can talk a little bit, because I know you've spoken a little bit about like why Eight Can't Wait is maybe not the thing we should be rallying around.
I mean, the basic thing is right now is that what Eight Can't Wait is going around is basically proposing just a bunch of reforms, like based on increasing police accountability and not actually like doing things that materially reduce police power and move towards like abolition of the police. And so organizations like Black Lives Matter and, in Los Angeles, Youth Justice Coalition, which is a mostly like POC led organization, and other organizations have specifically have criticized Eight Can't Wait as being sort of a half measure that the establishment class can sort of just glom onto to seem like they're doing something when they can't, when they are not really doing anything. So I think to build on what you were saying is like we have to continue to be ambitious and in our demands, because like in pure physics terms, you have to apply an accelerating force that overcomes inertia. So anything that is just meant to please inertia will not actually cause any kind of acceleration. So it's like, that's why I say it's like we only get like piddly social democratic reforms if we unapologetically ask for full communism. So we got to keep doing that.
And not for nothing, just as a local anecdote, from what I understand, the chokeholds that killed Eric Garner here in New York had been banned.
Yeah.
And that's still happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, banning certain of these practices is not the same as ensuring that they will never happen again.
Well, and 8 Can't Wait also doesn't really address the systemic issues that are the real problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we had a massive report into the police, and I'm sure Paul will know more about this than I do, after the Stephen Lawrence inquiry. So this was 20 years ago now, am I right, Paul?
Longer, it's mid
20 years,
I
yeah.
think, yeah.
Yeah, and so Stephen Lawrence was a young black man who died at I think it was at a bus stop in London after some violence. And the way the Metropolitan Police handled it was very heavily criticised. But it took a long time for Doreen Lawrence, his mother, to get anything approaching the justice she wanted and needed. Paul?
It exposed institutional racism within the Met Police, and that led to a slew of reforms. And I would just always stress that, I grew up in a culture, I grew up in a society with a heavily militarized police force, where the police weren't your friends. I'm a Catholic. I grew up being terrified of police, and we went through nothing short of a revolution in this country. We had a real reckoning with the way our society worked, with a reckoning with sectarianism. And I think that what we're seeing in America is a reckoning now with racism. And I just hope that you guys get the reforms and the change that you really need out of this. And I think it is going to take something huge, like some sort of peace commission, some sort of reconciliation. I think it's going to be something really massive in order to deliver the change that you guys really need. And I'm happy to help in whatever way I can.
I just want to piggyback off that and say, like, here in the UK, we still have a lot of work to do and a long way to go. Even since the Lawrence report, we've had, Mark Duggan, John Charles de Menezes. It's still happening here, and yeah, so the UK is not innocent, and it's not something we can distance ourselves. It's going on in a faraway land. It's happening here too.
I'll jump in as well, just before I have to take off. I'm a Canadian living in the US, and often finding myself wondering why I'm fighting so hard to stay in the US right now. I'm having some visa issues, and that's another story.
Excellent question.
But everyone keeps saying to me, but you have the option of going back to Canada. Why don't you just go back to Canada? And our numbers might be smaller because our population is smaller, but we have the same problems baked into our system. The RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, were essentially founded to run Indigenous populations off their land and to put them into residential schools. And Canada committed a cultural genocide against generations of Indigenous youth, and they have formally apologized for the residential school system and other abuses, but at the end of the day, we've not seen any systemic changes. These problems still exist, and the relationship between government and RCMP, which is basically the federal police, and the Indigenous population, is still broken. To say nothing of other populations of people of color in certain parts of the country. So, and this is, one of the positive things to come out of all of this for people in Canada is that this is being laid bare as well there. And so that conversation is happening north of the border as well. Anyways, good to see you all. I have to run.
Yeah. See you later. Thank you, Robbie.
Bye, Robbie.
Bye.
And just for our viewers, if there's anyone still watching, I know that we've had some significant bandwidth issues here. It's one of the risks of doing this kind of thing, but I am recording straight from my desk, so the full broadcast sans broadcast issues will be available on YouTube very soon. So stay tuned for that. And Steffi, could you tell us what our next production is, and just let folks know what they can look forward to?
Our next production is a Voyager episode. It's Blood Fever.
Amazing. And we're doing that next week, is that right?
That will be on the 14th, yeah, all being well, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. We're going to run these credits one more time, but we will see you again next Sunday at the same time. And in the meantime, stay strong, stay safe. Black Lives Matter. All right.
Peace and long life, people.
All right.